Good evening. I would like to call to order the September 23rd Lake Washington School Board meeting. So please let the record reflect that all board members are present except for Director Sage, who will be excused. So right now, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the September 23rd agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director La Liberty that we approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So we'll begin tonight with public comment. As you know, we do this every meeting, and it's a time reserved for our public to come and speak to the board. Each speaker is provided up to 3 minutes to speak, and in order to ensure that we hear from a variety of people, individuals cannot share or donate their time to others. When your name is called, please approach the podium, speak into the microphone, giving your full name and school attendance area for the record. We have a stoplight system over here to my left that will show you a yellow light when you have 1 minute left, and red signifies that your 3 minutes are over. Please try to wrap up within that time frame we try to hold so that it's a consistent process for everybody who comes for a public comment. It is important for all community members to feel welcome and safe during our board's business meeting. We do not take public comment on issues related to personnel or individually named staff at board meetings. Audience members are expected to treat all attendees with respect and civility. So our person signed up this evening to address the board is Beth McIntyre. So if you would like to please come forward to the center microphone and give us your name again and your attendance area for the record. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Beth McIntyre, and my attendance area is Redmond. And I'm a parent of 4 kids within the Lake Washington School District. I have 2 kids at the middle school at EAS in Kirkland, and then I have 2 kids at Wilder Elementary. We've also been at different schools. We've been at Horseman, Dickinson, and Rockwell, all within the district. And it has come to my attention that the Lake Washington support professionals of the schools are negotiations for their contracts. And I would like to show my support for them to receive fair wages, particularly in the very expensive area that we live in. So people have asked me how I've managed so many different schools. And I always say to them, the best chance of integrating into a new school is getting to know the office staff. As I have done that, I have learned that they're amazing individuals who care about our kids and strive to make each school day the best that they can. I wanted to take a minute to just let you know what they've done personally for my family. They've called me, always starting out with, "Everything is okay," to tell me that the head injury my child suffered was minor and he'll be okay, and he'll have the green wristband to wear home. They've comforted my crying child when no one else could, when they'd have a frustrating episode. They knew my name and the name of my children. They talked to my shy preschooler every time we walked into the building, so that by the time he came to kindergarten, he was comfortable coming to school. And I tell you, for an entire year, he didn't say a word back. And then when he started kindergarten, he acted like he owned the place. They put countless Band-Aids and ice packs on all of them, as well as took their temperature to make sure they were okay. They cried with us, they've laughed with us, and they've asked after us when we've been going through struggles. They've given me personally an ice pack and a place to lay down when I threw my back out while volunteering at the school. They walked my kids to the car when I had an emergency at home and needed to leave quickly. They're always the first to smile and say hello as you walk in the building every single day. I've seen them work countless extra hours, sometimes being at the school from 7 a.m. until at least 9 p.m. when I left, and they hadn't yet. They've partnered with me on the PTA to make sure the kids have every opportunity that they can. I've seen them let someone in the door while on the phone, write a late slip, and direct a child to the health room all at the same time. I could go on, but I think you get the point. The office staff is the command center and heart of the school, and they deserve to receive fair wages. I understand that funding is complicated, but please prioritize and take care of them, because they prioritize and take care of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And so our next individual we have signed up this evening is Rolf Nelson.
Hello again, Rolf Nelson, Redmond High School Theater Pattern. Still awaiting real answers to my questions that I posted last school year. It had been asserted that Christians are privileged. I would dispute that. Lies can be either explicit or implicit through omission. You cannot understand world, European, or American history if you do not understand Christianity, just like you cannot understand Middle Eastern history without Islam. You don't have to believe it, but you do have to understand the faiths and how their adherents think, and to understand history. You also have to understand how it compares to the reality, not just the ideal, of the alternatives. How is Christianity treated in your own curriculum? Badly. It is barely covered at all, and where it is, the storyline is almost entirely negative. You cover the Spanish Inquisition and its persecutions of Jews and non-Catholics, but hardly a bad word about the 700 years of harsh Islamic rule that saw Christians slaughtered, enslaved, persecuted, raped, and pillaged, when Jews usually sided with the Moors, that the Inquisition was a reaction to. The curriculum covers the Crusades in a negative light, highlighting the human flaws and excesses of those involved, and some of the other internecine Christian wars, but rather glosses over the vastly larger 250 to 800 million dead from the Islamic wars of conquest. Comparisons matter. Most AP US history classes use Howard Zinn's book, and he's got very little good to say about Christianity, but largely ignores mass human sacrifice and cannibalism by the native priests. Think what message that sends to the kids about their own history and cultural roots. The Enlightenment is usually portrayed as a reaction to religion, when in fact most of its great thinkers were deeply religious. In fact, the Age of Reason came about because almost uniquely among faiths, the Christian God was believed to have laid down consistent rules that were understandable and knowable by observation and reason. That is, the physical universe was ultimately understandable by mere humans. There is a reason it was a Catholic monk who teased out the basic ideas of heredity that is still studied today in high school biology classes, and not some mystical goat herd. And the vast majority of scientific and technological progress made in the last 2,000 years came from European Christian minds, even though they are relatively small in number. The media isn't much better. It consistently highlights the failings of individual Christians, but ignores the vast good most Christian people do. Make a pedo priest joke and everyone laughs. Make a pedo imam joke and you risk your job and your life. It's Chick-fil-A and Christian bakers who get boycotted and harassed, not the halal and kosher restaurants. In fact, recent media meltdown back east was illustrative. Someone posted flyers that read, "Islam is right about women."
So please
People
wrap
freaked
up when
out.
you get the chance, please. Thank
Got
you.
about that much more. People freaked out but couldn't express it bluntly on camera because they instantly saw the catch-22. Agree and you are a misogynist. Disagree and you are an Islamophobe. Both cannot be right. But if you replaced Islam with Christianity, I am absolutely certain how women interviewed would verbally burn Christians at the stake. How would you respond? Maybe there is a reason there are so many homeschoolers in private schools.
Thank you. Seeing nobody else signed up for public comment, we will go ahead and continue with our meeting. So our next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Director Stewart and seconded by Director Carlson to approve the consent agenda. Dr. Stablem, would you poll the board?
I will. Director Sage is excused. Director Liberty?
Yes.
Director Stewart?
Yes.
President Bleasner?
Yes?
Director Carlson?
Yes.
And Dr. Stablem, could you summarize the donations for us, please?
I will. Our donations this month to date from Lake Washington Schools Foundation, the amount of $18,000. From our PTSA, an amount of $7,550. And from private sources, an amount of $9,475. For a total donation, as this part of this meeting, in the amount of $35,025.
And I would just like to highlight at the bottom, there is a donation from the California Casualty Company for an amount of $1,250, and it's in recognition of the district's Green Ribbon Award that we received for the sustainability and the work in our schools. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yes, and we are receiving that award very soon, and even have a delegation coming through our district in October. Shannon, is that correct? October, for a tour of our schools and to see some of our good practices.
Well, excellent. So great. Thank you, our community, yet again, for the support provided for our students. This helps ensure solid enrichment and enhancement for our kids. We couldn't do it without it. So on our next item, we're on to the non-consent agenda. And so we have adopted a strategic plan and then in the process of implementing. And so we are now in the process of getting sort of updates of where we're at in regards to those connections. So this is the first time.
This is
Let's
the
go.
first one, yes. And we'll have a number of different presentations over the next few years directly related to our strategic plan. And tonight, kicking us off first, I'm going to ask Gloria Henderson to come up. Gloria is our Director of Opportunity, Equity, and Inclusion. And she's going to talk about our equity work as well as some different supporting things such as culturally responsive teaching. But one of the things that we hope people see very clearly when they look through our strategic plan is that equity is kind of woven throughout. And the ways that we look at how we support students, how we look at academic support and success, and make sure that we are removing barriers, that we are helping kids have access to programs and services and activities. So Gloria is going to give us some updated information on her work.
This new.
Thank you very much. So I will talk, give some high-level points about what's going on with our equity, opportunity, and inclusion within Lake Washington School District. First, I would like to start off with our cycle of cultural humility, which is the cycle of cultural competency. I have humility in parentheses because it's really a journey, because it's not a checkbox, it's not a destination, it's a journey and we come to it in different places. And so those key pieces are awareness, knowledge, skills, and action and advocacy. And we enter in different places depending on the things we're learning, where our skills are, and where our action and advocacy. So it's really a cycle where we continue this work throughout our path to support our academic success of our students. And these are our equity outcomes for the 2019-2020 school year, and these were made in collaboration with other directors as well. All right. Our equity outcomes for 2019-2020 is to continue our unified commitment to our equity work and also to develop common understandings around race and equity, to have the common definitions to support our path across the next coming years. And also to deepen our learning of a core group of people. So this will exist of the lead building principal and 2 core members, and they will deepen their work to be able to support their building on their journey. And the buildings all have building equity teams. This will be their 2nd year. And this year, that work is flowing deeply into the building, so these teams are proactively and culturally responsive to their school communities. And our professional learning is equity-based, which supports classified, certificated, and administrative staff. And along the way, it's just not the technical work, it's our adaptive work to support the needs of our students and community. So our work is to provide guidance, leadership, and support to impact institutional and systemic change to increase the opportunity for all students, because as we know, equity is not a zero-sum game. It's to make sure all students have what they need to be successful. And last but not least, an outcome is engaging our families and community in culturally responsive ways. We have a varied amount of students and families within our district, and so this is a really important part of our work. A highlight for our is our district equity team. And for this, we hope to develop and sustain a diverse team. Out of the work that came last year, the District Equity Advisory Team came together and they prioritized certain areas, and these were the top 5 areas: human resources, professional learning, teaching and learning, community and family engagement, and issues resolution. With our human resources, the focus around that is around recruitment, hiring, and retention, especially of a diversified staff that reflect our students and community. And another highlight was our professional learning. Stephen Bryant from Professional Learning, I collaborated with a group from the diversity, from our district equity team to support our work of supporting what equity professional learning looks like within our district. Also, really excited about our culture responsive family engagement. This year, we have hired a family and engagement outreach coordinator. We're working together to deepen community partnerships because we cannot do this work alone. And also, our equity policy is in draft form, and we will work with the board and our community members to collaborate to make this policy one that supports all of our students and families. And our cultural liaisons, those will be up and running within the next month or so. And these community members reflect our diverse community, and they will help us build cultural capital across our district, so we maintain that we are able to support all of our students. And one of the things we'll do this year is to have a community film and book series. And this is a low-risk way to enter into having conversations around race and equity, where people come to it wherever they are in their journey. I'm really excited about our school equity teams. Our school equity teams this year, this will be their second year. This year they will be adding parents and students to make sure that voice is there, to become more inclusive. And the schools did surveys last year with families and students to ensure that the work within their building was tailored to their communities. Another part of this work is to increase the race and equity awareness level of all staff members in school. And because our schools are so big and our district is big as well, the work of the building equity team or school equity teams will be to have 2 core members and the building principal get really deep work in 2-day intensive, for example, and work across the school year. And that work will be pushed and supported within the building. So we are building capacity of those individuals within those schools. Professional learning. And it's interesting what we can do with a dedicated group of professionals. So a lot of the work that I've done in my team has been really collaborating across. And one of the things that has been really a highlight is our professional learning around building internal capacity and training and support. Our areas of focus: equity and inclusion, cultural competency, and our innovative practices and mindsets. For example, Stephen Bryan and I, we worked to support the training of our office administrators, paras, and IAs last year, and part of that work included the fundamentals of cultural competency. We'll now have 3 more sessions this year. Our certificated, which include our teachers within the buildings, they will receive training and support through their building equity teams, and also learning sessions across the school year. And some will be optional outside of their school day also to support the work, because we know everyone's in a different journey. But there will be required trainings that are systemic across. And our administrative team, that work will be done through our building equity teams and also strategic planning meetings to ensure that our equity work is supported across the district, because we know that for our students to have support that they need, that everyone within a district needs to be touched in this way to increase their competency with our equity work. And next up, to drill down further on what our learning looks like within our district, Kelly Peace and Stephen Bryant will be coming up, and they will talk more about culture responsive practices.
Thank you. I'm Stephen Bryant, Director of Professional Learning, and it's great to be here with you this evening. And this is Kelly Pease.
Hi.
She's our Director of Interventions and Literacy. I know. All right. So I'm excited. It's been really fun as Gloria mentioned that we've had quite a few opportunities to partner together, and one thing about equity being built across our whole strategic plan is it requires all of us to work together around equitable practices, and an opportunity has been between Kelly's department and my department to really take on a focus around culturally responsive teaching. So we know that one of the most important relationships in education is the relationship that happens between the teacher and the student in the classroom. It's the place where there's the most leverage for making change to find success with all of our students. So we've been doing that through a process called culturally responsive teaching. And we started that work a year ago knowing that we were working on equity across the district. And we had a number of teachers and administrators across the district who had done and begun to look at culturally responsive teaching. And one of the places that they've gone to find that information and really study was around Zaretta Hammond's book, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. So we used that information to leverage where we already had a large degree of interest in people building capacity, and we adopted her definition for equity, which is up above you, but really was looking at understanding how students display culture through their learning and how they make meaning using culture. We looked at how to respond positively and construct teaching moves that use cultural knowledge that teachers would know about the culture of their students, that they would connect the knowledge of their students with the concepts and the content that they were teaching, that they would promote effective processing, understanding the importance of relationships, and the social emotional aspect of cultural responsiveness in the classroom. And ultimately, in the end, is creating a safe space for learning. One of the things that Zaretta Hammond does really well is she talks about a framework for ensuring that all of our students are ready for rigor in the classroom. So cultural responsive teaching is about preparing kids for all kinds of rigorous engagement instruction in the classroom. She does that through a framework that deals with awareness of the student's culture, building learning partnerships with those students, learning how different students process information through their culture, and developing a community that is safe in the learning environment in the classroom. When we were looking at how do we make this work happen, we were looking at what's research-based that would support culture responsive teaching. And we landed on SIOP, and that's where Kelly's going to talk to us a little bit about our SIOP part of culture responsive teaching.
So SIOP stands for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. And the intent of the protocol was originally in its inception to support EL students accessing content in the English language. As we were doing a comparison between Zaretta Hammond's work and the SIOP model, they're very closely interconnected. It's taking a look at getting to know your students well, planning intentionally for where they are in data both culturally and as well as academically. We are sure that CRT is launched in the SIOP framework that provides teachers with understanding of 8 key components. And so you'll see years next to these components. We see this as our initial inception was a 3-year plan, but we realize in education it's not done in 3 years. So we have developed a process in which we have each year, each staff member, each school participates in 6 hours of culturally responsive professional learning, which included, last year it included how CRT and SIOP are connected, lesson preparation and building background. This year we're going to review what we did last year, and we also onboarded over 200 new teachers with the first 3 components in a half-day training earlier this summer. Or this, I guess, in the summer. We're in the fall now. And we also, this year, we're going to talk about strategies, interactions, practice, and application, and continually grow this. And so that as we get into sustaining, it's really keeping it in the forefront, because we're not done in 2021. That's when, as a system, we're ready to launch fully equipped with all the culturally responsive pedagogy that's embedded in SIOP strategies.
So this is a system-wide approach to professional learning, and we've started with our building administrators and do sessions to really build their broad knowledge and the opportunity to build application and support application with their teachers across CRT and SIOP. We've created a train the trainer model. So we have teacher leaders identified for every school. All schools have 2, and some of our secondary schools have up to 3. We meet with them every month and work on both building their competency around being leaders, being able to model the approaches, being able to provide resources to their school and their peers, being able to partner and collaborate with the principal around this work. And then they in turn actually lead the professional learning sessions that Kelly talked about, the 6 hours of training that goes on throughout the year. It's spread out throughout the year so that we can approach this around learning, applying, and reflecting on the work. There's also an opportunity for teachers who are highly interested in the subject to join cohorts. We have both an elementary and a secondary cohort going forward on that. And then what's exciting about this process is that we are including every single certificated staff member in this process of the learning. Okay. Last of all, I wanted to just talk about, we've been talking about equity in the district for a long time. And one of the places we started was really with a book by Anthony Muhammad called Closing the Opportunity Gap and the Achievement Gap. And inside of that book, he references a leader in this work named John Singleton, who talks about 3 P's that it takes to do this work. Passion, which is the belief that we can make a change in students' lives. Persistence is that we just don't do this one time, that it takes a long period of time to make these changes, which shows why this is a multi-year process. And last of all, practice. And he talks about practice, and we think about practice in the way that a swimmer might go to practice over and over, but it's not just that the swimmer goes and practices over and over. The swimmer applies a specific stroke to be successful. That stroke is their practice in the classroom. The specific stroke or practice are the CRT and SIOP strategies that we're asking teachers to develop and apply in the classroom. So there is a change in their practice in the classroom as a result of this strategy. So thank you.
So some really great things happening, and what's most exciting, I think, is the ways that people are beginning to collaborate more and more around all of the different ways that equity threads through our work. And Kelly and Stephen and Gloria are highly skilled presenters and teachers and leaders of learning in our district, and they are doing a fabulous job of really helping that to just continue to filter out. But there's a couple of things that I just wanted to point out. One thing was what Kelly said, we had 200 new teachers, and so some of our time is spent thinking, how do we continually bring that new learning to people who maybe didn't catch it in the year 1 of a cycle? And then how do we bring on our new administrators? And they're being very purposeful about that. Stephen and his department are also working on how do we bring these things online and continue to make things available in all different ways, and really think about just-in-time as well as these large trainings that we're needing to do. And I also wanted to just point out, as a district, we continue to get larger and larger, and just the capacity that we need for physical space to do this kind of work that supports teaching and learning, supports really all areas of our strategic plan, is getting more and more important. I think they're all presenting in places other than some of our district facilities because we just need room to do it. So we appreciate their work, and thank you for being here this evening.
Any questions?
Just a couple. Gloria, could you give some examples about how your work supports and increases meaningful inclusion for the disabled students?
What was the last thing you said? I'm sorry.
I said that how your work supports and increases the meaningful inclusion of disabled students. There are some examples, some programs, individual programs. Mm-hmm. See where I'm going?
Individual programs.
I'm hearing, we're working towards this, but I'm not hearing anything specific that we're working on yet, or are we just not there yet?
I don't think we're there yet. We're moving with that. So part of the collaboration this year will be a closer connection between my department and also special education. Because Shannon and I have had conversations, but it hasn't led to us coming up with specific supports. So that is will be an area of focus this school year also. We just have to come together to see how that works. With partnerships, increasing that work is also something that I need to work on with the special education department. Not that it totally exists there, but that's I think the promise of and having an equity department is that I do realize that that's a gap, and even when I spoke to my district equity advisory team, we do understand that we do have a focus on race, but there's a lot of intersectionalities, and that intersectionality is one that needs to be more robust than what it is.
Okay.
I would also like to add with that, the work that Gloria is leading along with others is also about bias and looking at students as all of our students and looking at ways that if we have barriers to different opportunities in place, that we're trying to remove those barriers. And so part of this is mindset work as well as programmatic work. And I think that's definitely a huge part of how that equity work infiltrates all of the different kinds of programs that we have.
There's some specific examples around the district when we put in new playground equipment, we put wood chips, and the kids with wheelchairs can't get in. And those sort of things are kind of easy, low fruit, it seems like. But I know there's some others where when you're trying to work on inclusion with the special needs students, especially those with communications difficulties, that becomes a little more intricate. And in fact, not only for you, Gloria, but maybe for Stephen, I know that we've worked a lot with our deaf students or our hearing impaired students on trying to make sure that we communicate very well with them, whether they're SEE or they're ASL, whichever it may be. Lord knows, I learned something very significant a few years ago that the word for, or the sign for SEE and ASL for for hurry up is an opposite. It's the same motion, but it may slow down in one version and hurry up in the other. And we almost had a child in a fire drill just freaking out because she was being pushed to go faster, and the meaning was, anyway. But how is our district meeting the needs of the other disabled students who have difficulties in communicating, whether they're low verbal, nonverbal, with the idea of working more with the issues of speech generating devices?
Some PSYOP strategies that help
Okay.
provide access for students. So as we're thinking about designing instruction, we take a look at who are the specific children that are sitting in our class. What are the best ways of communicating with them? And with the pedagogy we're introducing with PSYOP, it's scaffolded with visuals, it's the fancy word is realia, with pictorial representations as well as auditory access for students who might need an assisted hearing device, an FM device of some nature. Lots of visual cues, which are really good for all students, not just for students with communication concerns, but students who are speaking language other than English as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of, in particular, I've seen with my son and some other kids that if you ask them what's your address, they can't know it, or can't give it out verbally, but they can go on their device and go, and his address is da-da-da-da-da. And it just seems like we have a lot of those kids in that realm that if we get to them early, we have a better chance of having them have a better chance for a better education too. And I'm just not seeing that there.
And I think that it's the difference between receptive and expressive language.
Right.
And ensuring that we are empowering students with the tools and strategies they need to be able to be effective communicators, is what I hear you saying.
Yeah, and I'm just not seeing the tools.
And I think through scaffolding instruction, we can build frames for students that when they are moving to assistive devices, that they can see the first, then next, and the strategy in which to communicate. But as far as the in the detail level, the granular on what specifically, I think that would be dependent also on students' individual education plans.
Well,
No?
they're still the same devices. They don't make sounds too.
Hang on, I think there's a few more.
Yep.
Director Carlson.
So I'm going to echo some of Mark's concerns. I'm fully aware, and I appreciate that SIOP actually is applicable to most of the gaps that we have concerns with. But when you talk about equity, my concern with this evening's presentation is that SIOP is subsidiary of CRT. And when you say culturally responsive teaching, I don't feel like that includes SPED kids. And I don't feel like that includes low-income kids unless they are a minority or they are ELL students. That's something where those are gaps we care about passionately and believe are part of the equity work. And we're seeing a lot of work on race and culture, but not on socioeconomic gaps and not on the SPED gaps. I'm not saying it's not happening. It's just that your presentation tonight didn't mention low-income kids once, and it didn't mention SPED kids once. And that puts some alarm bells up for us, because that's part of what equity means when we put it into our draft of the goals of the district.
Absolutely. These are some of the most relevant current things that we wanted them to report on tonight as we start the year.
Right.
With some of the most recent trainings that we've had, but you're right, all of that is woven together.
Right. So ultimately, that's all part of equity. And
Absolutely.
please always have that on your first slide so that everyone feels like we're not ignoring their part of the problem. That's all I'm trying to
Because if they
say.
can't communicate, then their communication their behavior becomes their communication. And the research is there that these speech-generating devices are a godsend for these kids.
That said, I wanted to lead with thank you. The CRT stuff looks fantastic, and it's addressing an important big gap. I mean, among our groups who we need to address major equity gaps, ELL, particularly the Hispanic component, is massive. So thank you. That's a great start.
So if I could just ask one, I just have a few follow-up, just a question. Thank you very much. I'm very excited by the information and what you've put forward. It's great. So my question is, so this was a lot with the professional development. So as we look at a big component that we work with are our results, which are the student outcomes. So as this work goes into play, where would we as the board be looking to see some changes in regards to the data or the results that we're seeing, and when would we expect that to be? Just knowing it takes time for things to change, so how does this feed into those results for our kids?
And I want to speak to that more globally, because we're looking
Great.
at how do we bring all of the different elements of our strategic plan together. So we've done a few things. One is, if you'll notice in our strategic plan, we've identified very specific targeted indicators. And so that's for all of our groups by subgroup. So for example, with literacy, we have our DIBELS, our SBA scores, things like that. So we're going to be monitoring that. In fact, all of our directors who have anything to do with academics and behavior meet together, and those are the indicators we're going to be mapping throughout the year. Then we also tied those indicators into the results policies that we're going to be bringing to you in the next few weeks. And so those are actually specific, targeted, goal-set indicators that will say this is where we're shooting for, these are the things we're going to monitor, and this is how we'll know we're making progress. So all of those tie together. We have our strategic plan initiatives, we have our results indicators, and then we have indicators actually embedded in the strategic plan. And then there's another layer beneath that. Each of these things that we're talking about, these initiatives, each of our directors who owns that has a plan that they've developed for that specific area, and they'll have indicators that they're monitoring too. So those are all embedded and layered, but they should also be the same. So when we're looking at DIBELS, we want to see the same indicators in a plan that Kelly puts together for SIOP, that we see in our strategic plan initiative, that we see in the results report. Those should all really tie nicely together, so we're all monitoring the same things.
I would also assume, based on listening to the culturally responsive teaching and those approaches, that we would likely see stronger engagement of our kids within classrooms, a sense of inclusion and welcoming, encouraging, and those components going as well. Will we be able to be looking at those as well in this process?
Yeah, so we think some of those are probably going to be embedded in our R3 as well. And so we have indicators that are quantitative, so achievement data, but also perception data, how students are feeling connected to school, how parents are feeling about how their students are treated in school. And again, those are all by subgroups. So going to Krista's earlier question, we'll be looking at students with disabilities and families of students with disabilities, students who are living in low-income households, and we're also looking at students of color. So all of those will be disaggregated as well.
Thank you. It's sort of just looking through the lens of where are we going with this work, because you're right, our relationships with teachers and staff. So the one other question I had was, I heard a lot about certificated teachers, knowing that our students are impacted by all staff. Bus drivers, our paraeducators, our instructional, our office staff, as we heard this evening. how will this play with all our staff? And maybe I missed that in the presentation.
And I'm going to
so-
let Stephen and Gloria speak to that because they've been doing some really amazing work connecting not only our certificated but our classified staff.
Thank you.
We do recognize that every person within the Lake Washington School District does impact students. And so last year, for example, Steve and I led training, supported training with our paraprofessionals, office professionals, and also our instructional assistants, and that will continue this year with 3 planned sessions. And part of our work was really geared towards that there's the idea around intersectionality interwoven in, and not just equity for the sake of equity. It's just we're doing this foundational work, but also connected to what their everyday roles are, so they can see that connection. And also this summer, I did a session with the librarians. I collaborated with Mindy Mallon from our tech department, and there were sessions for every librarian, and it was around culture responsive practices and library programming. And so that's the goal of the work across with the equity department and collaborating across, that staff do learn about intersectionality when it comes to income levels, race, LGBTQ, not too deep in that, depending on the age, right? But also so they can see how this works within their everyday work, so it's not disconnected. And so this how it impacts our kids. And I'll let Stephen add on too.
Did you talk about the transportation?
No, I'd love that.
Okay. And Gloria and I also spent 2 hours with our bus drivers earlier this fall, and did much of the same work that we've done with office professionals and paraeducators and instructional educators. So that was really fun and was like a big hit. And we had some technology problems in the room, and they were very kind and considerate and invited us back already. So they're very excited about that work. I did want to mention that through the state mandate, we will be starting the instructor paraeducator certificate program this whole school year. During the school year, all instructional paraeducators, which in our system include instructional assistants and paraeducators, will receive 14 hours of training. We chose that the classes and the learning objectives are set by the state, but the content and the learning design is up to the district. And we chose this year to, in the first 14 hours, 2 of those sessions, so 2 2-hour classes, 4 hours will be focused on cultural foundations, so work in that area. So we're really focused on that and prioritize that. So all 600 plus of our paraeducators, instructional paraeducators, will receive that training this year.
I also want to add about our music teachers. We will be this year collaborating with the music department to have culture responsive teaching and how that relates to music programming for our kids, and also continue to work with the diversity action teams and other, like the Black Student Union and other groups within the schools in a pilot program kind of way to support their voice, especially, for example, Lake Washington High School, they will have a separate equity team for their students, and these students also will engage with the district, with the building equity team. So those are just other examples of student voice and working with other people besides the typical classroom teachers.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your answering all those questions and your work and going forward with all of this. It's been a lot of time, so excited to see all these pieces coming through, and only the start of a lot of great things. So thank you very much for your time and effort this evening. Any other questions, comments? Okay. So with that, we will go on to the second presentation, I believe.
Yes, and this one is focused more on our resources in our strategic plan, namely our facilities. And so Barbara Posthumus, our Associate Superintendent for Business and Support Services, and Brian Buck, our Director of Support Services, are going to give us just an update on our current projects. There's a lot of them. And I just want to say hats off to our whole operations team and our project managers. There are very few school districts that open facilities in 1 year and also have quite a range of ongoing projects happening alongside of those, and they've done an excellent job. So thank you, Brian, to you and your team for that.
There you
Okay. Okay. So this is our facility update. We're in alignment with our fiduciary responsibility for the effective use of resources. We're going to start with the 2016 bond projects. And like Dr. Stavum mentioned, it's a pretty big lift to open 4 new schools. So Timberline Middle School, Juanita High School Phase 1, Kirk Elementary and Meade all opened, and I'm honored to stand here today on behalf of our project teams, but also all the internal service groups inside our district. It really takes everyone to open up a school, and so even though we get to stand here today in front of you because we're responsible for these projects, it really takes everyone. So Juanita High School opened up in the fall, this fall, Phase 1. And this is a nice aerial. You can kind of see the new school and then also the construction of Phase 2 there. This blue area is the Phase 1 that opened in the fall. And then the gray area is what is Phase 2.
So we're still half the school is that sea of portables out in the parking lot.
There are still portables out in the parking lot, yeah.
Okay, but on that last slide, that last line was, no, sorry, the previous one that you were saying opening 1 year early?
Yeah, so originally Phase 1
You
was
buried
to
the lead,
open.
that's awesome.
Yeah, we opened 1 year early, and part of that was we used the procurement methodology of alternative delivery of GCCM, which is General Contractor Construction Management, and it was actually Cornerstone General Contractors that really helped us with the phasing and the siting that allowed us to pull that ahead 1 year. Yeah. And so Phase 1 complete, like we said. Phase 2 construction is underway. The concrete slab and the building steel for Phase 2 is nearly complete, should be complete in September. The new ticket booth should be open in time for the homecoming game on October 11th. So a few pictures. On the left is the main entrance on opening day. In the center is the interior of the theater, and on the right is the new servery. This picture really kind of shows all the Phase 1 building, where the Phase 2 will go, and then the field house and pool, and you can see the portables out there. On the right is the slab and steel assembly. This is Timberline Middle School, opened on time this fall. This is the front entry main sign. Accomplishments, again, we opened on time, then synthetic track installation and striping is scheduled to be complete in September. We have a kind of a revised CTE culinary space that will be completed in October, and our open house is scheduled for October 12th. Again, a couple pictures. On the left is opening day fun. I think this picture was actually requested. Our project manager took that for the family. On the picture on the right is our library. On the left is one of our science classrooms, and on the right is a general classroom. Peter Kirk Elementary. Again, this opened on time in the fall. This is the aerial. You can see the new school on the left. The parking lot's complete there, and they're beginning the construction of the covered play and field. Playground, play field, and parking scheduled to be complete in October, with the community open house scheduled for October 24th. This is Kirk, a few pictures for Kirk. On the left is one of the super graphic walls that we have with the tree going up multiple levels. On the right is the front entry on the top, and then on the bottom is the play toy structure, and then the construction of the covered play.
What's the surface on the play area?
Surface of this play area?
Yeah, what will be the
I
tile?
believe it's going to be plate chips, engineered wood fibers.
Is that wheelchair accessible?
Yeah, they are ADA compliant. So Margaret Mead Elementary, this view, you can kind of see the park behind, the City of Sammamish Park behind the school, with the playground and play field being constructed in front. The playground, play field, and parking to be complete in October. Community open house November 14th. Pictures on the top is the exterior view of the main entrance. In the center, bottom left, we have the play field under construction. And in the center there is a view of the commons and stage. And to the right is a view from the shared learning into classrooms. And I think that's on opening day there. Old Redmond Schoolhouse. So the picture you see right there is some of the tuck pointing that's going on the exterior brick. That's the front of the school. The new roof installation and the exterior masonry restoration is in progress. Windows and exterior cladding to begin in October, with the ancillary interior improvements to follow in November. All right, so this is the east-facing wall on the left. That's the finished product of one of the walls, the tuck pointing. In the middle is some of the framing going on of the exterior interior walls. I know it's confusing. On the right is the new roof in progress. And then the bottom right there of the brick kind of shows you what tuck pointing looks like. So on the left side of that picture is them carving out the old mortar and then replacing it with the new mortar. And before the wall is complete, they acid wash the wall and then seal the brick.
Quick question for you. Thanks to this old house, I do understand what tuck pointing is, but I don't understand what in the world cladding is. Can you tell me what that is?
Cladding. It's like roofing material that's vertical.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Completed projects. Baker and Barton are completed. They opened 1 year ago, and then Explorer opened in the fall of 17. And so program cost updates. So on the left is revenues, on the right is program expenditures. We have planned $429 million for revenues, and to date we've received $425. Projects are on schedule and expenditures are on track. We expect about 85% of the program to be spent by the end of the school year. And this slide's really just to note that we do have planned $21 million in state construction assistance funds, and we expect we get those funds at the end of the project, so we anticipate receiving them over the next couple of years.
I had never fully appreciated this. That would be better titled State Construction Reimbursement Funds. 'Cause they're not assisting us if we get them after we built it.
Yeah, we get them after the fact, yeah.
Okay.
And it's just a portion, it's just a slight portion of the cost it actually takes. So our 2018 four-year capital levy provides for facilities and technology upgrades. Tonight, we're focusing on the facilities, some of the facilities upgrades we've performed over the summer. We really break them down into 4 categories. And here are just some of the projects we completed. These are classroom conversions at Eastlake High School. A little bit of kudos to Chris Beatty over there at Eastlake High School. These projects are probably the hardest projects to do because we basically have 10 weeks to do them. And the science room was completely dug up into the slab, dirt everywhere, 3 weeks before school. And so on the left is the science conversion, and the 2 other ones are just general classrooms. These are a couple of our roof projects. On the left is Twain Elementary. It's a roof replacement. The top picture shows it in progress, and the bottom picture shows it complete. It has a little bit of a coating on the flat roof, and then new shingles on all the sloped roof. And on the right, we have Kirkland Middle School. And it's a coating there, so it's a 10 to 15-year roof. And you can see it being applied. And that's our roofs, we always look at the different options, whether a full replacement or a coating is in order. And generally, the coating, you can do it once and get another 15 years. It's more economical. Rockwell, these are some ADA upgrades at Rockwell. This was a two-phase project for Rockwell. And so on the top left is the front entry coming down, and the bottom left is a pathway over to the kindy play area. And then on the right is their play toy structure in the back of the ADA ramping down there. And so for our 2019 six-year capital projects levy, we have permanent classroom additions at 5 schools, and then we have core and common space upgrades and safety and security upgrades. So in the fall of 2020, Lake Washington High School classroom addition will open. In fall of 2021, the Kirkland Elementary Schools, Franklin, Rose Hill, and Twain will have classroom additions open, as well as the Lake Washington High School core space expansion. In the fall of 2022, Carson's addition will open, along with Franklin, Rose Hill, and Twain core space pending feasibility. And then fall 2023 will be also core space for Carson pending feasibility. So here's the map of those. Twain is 4 classrooms. Rose Hill is 8 classrooms. Lake Washington High School is 20 classrooms plus core expansion. And Franklin is 8 classrooms. And Carson over there, 4 classrooms. So this is Lake Washington High School addition. It's about a 45,000 square foot addition. It comes off of the Performing Arts Center, and so we'll be able to connect the Performing Arts Center to the new classroom addition, and it kind of creates a new courtyard there. So accomplishments, construction started in June. The north, we added parking, so the north parking lot opens in September. In October, the concrete slab will be completed, and then steel assembly will begin in November, and they expect the building envelope to be enclosed by February. For core expansion, on the left there, you can see schematic design really for the new auxiliary gym, and then commons expansion happens inside the existing commons. So our concept designs will be completed in May. Was completed in May, schematic design in September. And so we're going to be going for construction documents in May with bidding in 2020. Construction will go from 2020 through August 2021.
So before we leave Lake Washington, I do have one question, not so much around the facility itself, but now the structure, the arts wing had been the furthest point from the school, and we just put another wing on the other side of it. I'd love to get an update on what the instructional plan is for how to use that space, because getting from there to the other end of the school could be a real challenge unless this is intended to be a wing of freshman classes or something, and I don't think I've heard anything along those lines. So it sounded like there were science classrooms in it, so it could be, but I don't know what the instructional planning is. Thanks.
For the elementary school additions, again, Franklin has 8 classrooms, Rose Hill, 8 classrooms, Twain, 4 classrooms. Accomplishments, concept design completed in May, schematic in August, and we've had some pre-submittal meetings with the city of Kirkland. We expect construction documents to be complete by June 2020, with bidding completed by the end of August, construction beginning in July of 2020. For Carson, concept design to be complete by May, with schematic done by August 2019. We expect to have a pre-app meeting with Sammamish, City of Sammamish in March, with construction beginning July 2021 through August 2022. Okay, so core expansion, we're basically in a feasibility study right now. We're looking at concept designs, and based on how the classroom expansions, the bidding goes on those, we'll be able to determine how much we can afford as far as core space expansion. So we have several options, and we're looking at getting alternate bids on multiple. So safety and security upgrades. These are the high school secured entry modifications for East Lake Redmond and Lake Washington High School. As a reminder, Juanita High School already has the secured vestibule with the opening of phase 1. Concept design is underway. Timing of construction is still to be determined, and the installation of the elementary school exterior video cameras is still to be determined. For communication, our goal and focus is to keep the community updated. We're pushing information out, as well as having Facebook Live events. And we have our open houses and grand openings scheduled. And then last but not least, this is our Building on Success page, where we have a Let's Talk button, and we have progress reports and project information. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah.
Quick question. Early in the process for all the construction, we started worrying about the cost of steel going up because of the various embargoes. Has that had any kind of an impact as much as we thought it was going to have early on, or I'm just curious?
Yeah, so we kind of got in right before the tariffs started impacting some of our general contractors.
Okay.
So we do have one project on Timberline where they were impacted a little bit, but it didn't really impact us much. It impacted our general contractor and their sub. But for the most part, Juanita came in early, and the steel assembly went up quite fast there. So we haven't seen any repercussions related to the tariffs.
But for the new construction that we're going on?
Yeah, for the next phase of construction, we will likely see an impact related to steel.
So those cost savings will probably be transferred into the higher cost for steel?
Say that one more time.
The cost savings that you had been able to accrue in the earlier ones will probably be eaten up by the steel excess.
Yeah, so I haven't valued that out yet. We still really have to go out to see what the bidding market is.
Has it also had an impact on the quantity of steel available?
Yes. So, like I said, we hit it at the right time.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have major delays, because what happened was when the tariffs came out, people pre-bought steel. And so the ones that pre-bought the steel were able to get it, and those that didn't were kind of in delay. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Oops. Any other questions? I just want to say thank you for all the work. That is an incredible amount of facilities work that's going on, and all those schools have opened on time. Old Redmond Schoolhouse having remodeling challenges, as many of us who have old houses recognize. So thank you for that work. It's appreciated that you come through and being clear with that. It sounds as we talk about the dollars, even we have been in a challenging cost environment for construction, that we have been bring things in on budget. And that's great. That's good work by doing those cost savings through that and really taking into account all those different components through there. So thank you very much. It's all very exciting to see. And the grand openings and the open houses are a great opportunity to see our schools. If people want to know sort of what that vestibule idea looks like for our high schools, Juanita High School would be a great opportunity to see sort of that concept of what that means to have that entrance. So thank you.
One last quick question. I remember we talked about how the boom in Seattle area was causing also a labor shortage, if you will. Has that been sort of overblown at first, and we didn't have as much of a problem as we thought we were going to have, or has it been a challenge?
No, our contractors have had issues with electricians and plumbers. I mean, those are the two in the market that are hard to find. For example, Lease Crutcher Lewis with Meade and Kirk, you know, by combining those two under one GC, they were able to get more buying power and get that labor in there. So we haven't been impacted, but many are. Yep.
All right, thank you very much. And so from that, we will now move on to our legislative updates. So Director LaLiberty, if you have anything to report.
Two items to report out to the community tonight. The first is that during our study session this evening before this meeting, the board discussed what our priorities would be for the upcoming School Director Association Legislative Assembly, which takes place this Friday and Saturday in Spokane. Both myself and Director Bleasner will be traveling to attend that. And in that assembly, that is a statewide assembly of school directors, and it's to set the priorities for the statewide association. So we'll be arriving with our own set of ranked priorities to advocate for. Those priorities include full funding of the school employee benefits and pensions program, additional flexibility and funding for school construction, additional funding for early childhood education and special education and special needs, and for special education and special needs students. So we'll be attending that this week. I will report back to the community at our next board meeting in early October on the results of that. So that's the first item. The second is also at our study session this evening, we discussed a first draft of our legislative platform for our district's legislative platform for the upcoming legislative session. That platform will be brought forward for adoption at our next meeting. By this time I can report out that we are discussing as our priorities, additional funding for special education programs and services, additional funding for social and emotional learning. I already talked about school construction funding and full funding for the school employees benefit and pensions program. So more to come. Things are starting to ramp up, and look forward to working in this upcoming session.
Thank you. Any questions for Director LaLiberty? All right, then there'll be more to come at our next meeting in October. So with that, we now have the superintendent report. Dr. Stabem.
Thank you. I just want to take the opportunity to kind of connect some of the things that we've heard tonight and some of the things that are just going on as we wrap up September here very soon. We've been meeting collaboratively with our cities of our district, and we'll continue to do so. And we are in a unique place in the world. We have thriving communities that have some big opportunities coming up. And as we as a school district begin the process of establishing our facilities task force and really looking to the future, we have so many things that are in the mix with what's going to happen with this next legislative session, the things that we are focusing on as all of those communities focus on different projects. How do we continue to create the picture of one district and one big growing district as we move into the future? And so as we look at that path ahead of us, it's thinking about school and the mechanisms that a school district uses to fund school construction. And you can hear tonight after Brian and Barbara's report that the pace of that construction has moved very, very quickly and will probably continue to do so. And so over the next 6 months to 12 months, as we begin looking at what do those schools of our future look like, where do they go, how do we gauge the growth that we're experiencing. We had our New and International Families Welcome event that our PTA puts on Saturday morning this last weekend, and it was very, very well attended, probably to the point that we'll have to again look for another location for that, because we had, I think, over 200 families attend that, and they're very appreciative we have people coming from all over the world, and to understand our school district and ways that they can connect, ways that we connect them with their questions and answers and the services that they need, and all of the ways that we help people get started and then stay in our school community is really, really important. You also heard tonight that we had 200 new teachers come, and as we grow and expand the staff that it takes to open a new school and to continue to providing the quality learning experiences while still having large classrooms in some cases, because we've built to have room for more students that we expect to come even throughout the year. And it's just a very complex puzzle that we have to work on collaboratively. And so we're grateful to our communities, but we also just want to keep in mind that we need great minds and good thinkers in our community to be part of our work moving forward. And so people can be watching over the next month or so the opportunity arriving for that facilities task force work, and really thinking about what does school look like moving into the future, and what mechanisms will we use to pay for those schools, and where are they going to most need to be placed. So exciting work and great reminders tonight of all of the things that have to come together to keep the school district moving forward. And we're thankful that we have great people leading those initiatives.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no questions or comments, I want to thank you. It is a time of collaboration, and partnerships are key in addressing a lot of these issues that we have now. So it's great that we're beginning to really bring all those parties to the table. And so next I have board member comments. Any comments from any board members going forward? I'd just like to remind you there is a Director Area 2 meeting for the Washington State School Directors Association on September 30th. At 6 o'clock to 8:30 at the Mercer Island. I have to look up the school, I'm sorry, I don't remember. But if you haven't registered, you can speak with Diane. It'll be worth it. We'll be doing some onboard conversation, looking at the fiscal educational component for school directors. They're going to pilot it and do some opportunities there for people to see. It's also a chance to meet with individuals from OSPI, from the State Board of Education, as well as from WASDA itself. So if you're free, it's worth going. I will be there as the DA2 representative on the board. So that's it. Anything else? Okay, so with that, our next board meeting is set for October 7th. Our study session will begin at 5 with a board meeting to follow at 7. And with that, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Director LaLiberty and seconded by Director Carlson to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Meeting adjourned.